Simon Harris is trying to bring this in, facial recognition technology. Tell us, what is it?
Yeah, it's not even necessarily Simon Harris's owned idea. Helen McEntee has supported it as well, and will continue to when she comes back in the summer as well. And Drew Harris, the commissioner, the Garda commissioner, also supports the idea of using facial recognition technology. It can be used in many different ways. That's the thing about this. Like, it has many different functionalities. So there's ways that it can be used where you can survey footage after the fact, after an event, try and find CCTV footage and try and match faces in that CCTV footage with faces in a database. And you can imagine, like, we actually encounter facial recognition technology a lot when we go through the airport, if you go through those scanners. That has a great situation where they set it up that you are scanned perfectly to match the face that's on your passport. When you're trying to scan through CCTV footage, it's a completely different ball game. People are in small pixelated form, they're maybe hiding their face or in bad lighting. So it's much more difficulty, and actually difficult, and it doesn't have a great accuracy rate. But what it can do is help Gardaí to sift through footage like that. Maybe it's hours and hours of footage, maybe it's weeks of footage that a human being would normally have to sift through. Facial recognition databases can technically detect maybe 1 million instances in a second. Some of them can. Again, different providers offer different services. So it will decrease man errors, but the accuracy is still a huge problem.
But we know it's been used in Russia to, like, identify anti-war protesters. It's also used in China to enforce their social credit system here. So it can be unethical in some shape or form. But has there been any success stories with it being used by security, for instance?
So yeah, like, there are instances where this is brought in as something that's told to be for people's safety, or for, like, smart city technologies that enables people to do things more frictionless in daily life, and then it becomes part of a surveillance state and a tool of digital repression. That has happened. There are examples of that. It does happen in regimes like Russia and China, and even Iran has talked about using it to police the wearing of the hijab. And obviously those are the most extreme cases, but you do have to think of how it can be used ethically, and it all depends on the database, I think, that's being fed into it as well, because you could have known criminals that obviously would be a part of a database that the Gardaí have. But then when you're talking about suspects, and who's a suspect, and how do you define who gets uploaded to the database? Or if it's the case that it's a missing person, or especially in the case of missing children, which is where one of the most positive use cases is referenced, because thousands of missing children have been identified by Indian police using facial recognition technology. But those uploaded images, they have to be deleted. And we have a huge problem when it comes to databases, when it comes to maintenance, curation, and actually deleting images when you should delete them, because it's hard work. It involves doing the job.
But when we're seeing that about Russia and Iran and whatever else, I think, I'm just reading there, so Meta announced in 2021 that they would delete face recognition for over 1 billion users. So, listen, my wife and I were talking about an AirFat fryer yesterday, and all of a sudden you get advertisements coming up all day. So your phones, if you have a phone, it's pretty much tracking everything you do.
Yeah,
and it's tracking your facial recognition as well. So why are we okay to hand over that information to American tech companies, but then when it's our own guards for our own safety and for them to do their job better, is it such a problem?
That's the thing. This is where that question of the database becomes really, really relevant, because some people use facial recognition to open up their phone. So their phone is kind of containing a record of their face map, their face print, some call it. It's not as identifying as a fingerprint, but it is pretty good at identifying unique individuals. When you're using that technology, or even just the fact that we have so many pictures uploaded with our name associated with it on our social media platforms, this means that some companies working in this space have been able to create databases that are without people's consent, without their knowledge. And one of these companies in particular, Clearview AI, has been admonished by authorities in the UK, Canada, Australia, because it has done this. It claims that it's going to have a database of 100 billion people. It says basically everyone in the world will be in their database. And the only way they've done that is unethically.
Why, if they can do all that, are we worried? And why are the Greens and the Civil Liberties Group giving out about it when it's going to help the guards to try and identify people who potentially got up to no good?
Yeah.
Well, if it does do that and it's using Gardaí databases, and when it's used after the event, I think that's when people have the least issue with it. So if it's after the event of a crime and you're going back through CCTV footage, it's the live real-time element paired with mass databases of all citizens. That's where people start to get a bit iffy about it. Because what can happen then, like the Gardaí here, I will say, are saying that they will use it only in specific cases of a risk to national security or immediate risk of harm, such as a child abduction case. So they are planning to use it in limited circumstances. And the EU will probably only enable use in the limited circumstances. There's an AI Act in development at the moment that will likely limit it. But the thing is, it can very easily be deployed in a way that does start to discriminate against people and also incriminates on people's just civil rights of free movement. So public spaces, say you're going to an event and they're using facial recognition technology and you get publicly apprehended because of a 20% accuracy rate with these systems, pegged you as a criminal and in front of loads of people.
I'm sure you could pretty much prove that it's not you.
Well, hopefully, but it is true. Like, some of the data can have a bit of racial bias because there's all the data input in there is based on a lot of, white people.
Yeah.
And if you want to identify people of different ethnicities, or it can be slightly inaccurate. Because it's all based on the points of people's faces.
Yeah, so it looks at the contours around your eye, the distance between your nose and mouth. Sometimes there's like a different number of data points in different systems. Some say about 80 data points to create a face print, but I'd say more than a bit of racial bias. There's many, many papers written about the racial bias in these systems, and they actually more likely exaggerate bias than diminish it. That's one of the big problems with these systems. And you're saying as well, you could correct it. You could just prove very quickly that's not my face. What if your face accidentally gets flagged and you're constantly running against that problem? You can't change your face like you can change your password or other information that can be hacked online. So if that is becoming a tool for abuse, and they actually have hacked systems that are used by police services and stuff like that. So there's also the risk that these things can be hacked as well.
It's really interesting. I mean, the guards have said that they'll use it in the interests of citizens, fully in line with our constitutional and international European rights of people. Let us know what you think. Would you be happy with this? Do you really care? I mean, if you're kind of just get on to day-to-day goods, you've got your telephone, you've got your Alexa listening to everything you do. Is it really a big deal? 0896 111 111. Elaine Burke, thank you so much for joining us for Tech's Sake podcast to check out more.